What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word? Hummingbird. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Kandi and the Gang, Season 1, Episode 5, He Looks Like a Snitch. So we start off with where we left off last week, which was Todd and Kandi were having a meeting with Chandrika because they know what Chandrika had said about them. She was, overheard saying that Kandi and Todd don't care about their restaurant, that they just don't give a damn about it, so on and so forth. And they knew about this because of the surveillance camera that captured what happened when Brandon was talking to Chandrika on speakerphone. So Brandon was at the restaurant. He was in a back closet or a supply room, and he was on the phone with Chandrika. And in that closet room, there's a camera in there. So he's talking to her on speakerphone, and Chandrika is just letting it rip about Kandi and Todd, how she thinks that they don't care about the restaurant, and how at the meeting she felt like she really wasn't being heard with the concerns that she had. They just completely overlooked her. So Don Juan had seen the footage. He passed it on to Kandi and Todd, and that's why we're here having a meeting with Chandrika. So they let her know what they but that they know how she really feels. They don't let her know how they know. They don't talk about the camera. They don't talk about Don Juan. They just say, well, it's come to our attention about what you said, that we don't care about this restaurant. We don't care about our business. Chandrika kept on asking them, who told you? They wouldn't tell her who. So in the back of her mind, she's going to be doing her own investigation to get to the bottom of this. When Kandi asked Chandrika, so do you even really want to be here? Chandrika said that she does want to be here, but there's no team at OLG. People do whatever they want, and there's no cohesiveness with the employees there. So this is the reason why Kandi thinks it's important for her to have the team building event so that they can work together as a team and they can start building those team qualities. So that's where that ended. Moving on to Brandon's apartment. So we all know that Brandon and Dominique, they are, they're really smitten with each other and they're basically dating. So Dominique comes over to Brandon's apartment and you can just tell every single time he's around Dominique, it seems like you can just see how he is really into this girl. He really likes Dominique. And at first, I kind of thought that maybe Dominique wasn't feeling the same about Brandon. But the more that I see them together, it seems like she's also feeling him. So she tells Brandon that she got booked for a dancing gig because she is a professional dancer on the side. And so she goes to a lot of auditions to get booked for, I don't know what, for whatever they may need her for. Music videos, any kind of production where they need a dancer, I guess. So she got booked for a gig, and she's going to have to go to London. And he asked her who's the artist that she got booked with. She tells him that she can't say, but then we see a little clip, like a little flashback clip of where she's telling Kandi about her needing to go to London. And she tells Kandi that she got booked with Rick Ross. So I guess he's going to be doing a concert or doing a tour, and she's going to be one of the dancers. So, congratulations to Dominique for booking that gig with Rick Ross. Moving on. Now we are at Brian's apartment. So, he is on a 2-week suspension. I had no idea that they were suspending Brian for 2 weeks. I thought it was going to be for like a couple of days, maybe a week at the most. But he got suspended from OLG for 2 whole weeks. And so, he's using this time very wisely because he's putting a lot of work into his own little business, which is the soul roll business, where he makes soul rolls. And I think he says he's been doing pop-up shops for his soul rolls. So he says this business has been doing really, really great. So Chandrika comes over and Chandrika tells Brian about the meeting that she had with Kandi and Todd. And Chandrika says that she believes Patrick was the one that had told Kandi and Todd about what she said. And I think she believes that because when they had that big meeting with all the staff, Patrick was the one that was really throwing Chandrika under the bus with all the concerns that Chandrika had about the restaurant. Because at that team meeting, the staff meeting, when Kandi was asking everybody, so what concerns do you have? Chandrika was absolutely mum. So then Patrick felt like it was his responsibility to bring up all of Chandrika's concerns based on what Chandrika had based on what Chandrika had told him. So she thinks that it was Patrick that had snitched on her and told Kandi and Todd that, she had said they didn't care about their business. So then they talk about the team building event, and Bryant says that even though he's suspended, he's still going to show up. And Brian wants to come back. He wants to come to the team building event, even though he was suspended. Now, moving on. Now we see Todd and Kandi, Don Juan and Philip. They're having a meeting at OLG2. OLG2 is like worlds apart from OLG1. The interior of that restaurant is absolutely nice. It's really nice in there. It looks very, it looks a little bit more expensive than OLG1. OLG1 is like a little hole in the wall in the hood, whereas OLG2, it seems like, it's in the city. The interior decoration is really nice. The whole atmosphere is completely different from OLG1. So Kandi, Todd, Philip, and Don Juan, they're having a meeting, and Philip he also oversees OLG2, and he also oversees Blaze. So all three of Kandi's restaurants, Philip is like the consultant for all three of them. So they talk about Brian and what are they going to do about Brian. Philip says that Brian should be fired because he considers him a subordinate. He has no respect for authority. He has a bad attitude. He's not playing as he's not a team member. And so Philip says that Brian should just be fired. Kandi, not so much. Kandi's like, when he was a bartender, because Brian used to work for them before, and then he went on a long hiatus. He left OLG. He was gone for a very long time, and now he's back again. So Kandi says that when he used to work for her before, he was the best bartender that she had. And a lot of the positive reviews for OLG1 was because of Brian. A lot of people had a lot of nice things to say about Brian. So she does not want to let him go because she thinks that he is a pretty huge asset for her restaurant. Todd, on the other hand, he's on board with Philip. He's like, yeah, if Philip says he needs to go, then I think he needs to go. I don't know what it is about Todd. It's like he gets some type of a power trip from knowing that he has the ability to fire people. Like it really does something to him to talk about firing people. It's like his favorite subject is trying to figure out who we're going to fire now. Todd is one of those people that thinks that he can be a good leader by being very intimidating and always threatening people with taking away their money, always threatening people with firing them. He thinks that he can lead by putting fear in those who work for him, which is like, that is so passé. That is so yesterday. We have evolved from that way of thinking. People have more respect with people that treat them with respect. And so if that's how he's thinking, like, people are going to do what I want them to do because I'm always going to threaten them with their jobs, then Todd, you need to take a management class. You need to take some management classes because we're not doing that in 2022. That's not what's going on here today. No, sir. So Kandi asked about where Philip is with Torrin. How are they getting along? Where is their relationship? And Philip says basically nowhere. Moving on. So we are back at OLG1. Chandrika tells Brandon about her meeting with Todd and Kandi and who she thinks is the snitch. So she goes outside to go look for Patrick, and Patrick is with Melvin, who is the head chef at OLG1. So she goes outside and she sees those two together, and she tells them what happened with her meeting, and she alludes to the fact that she believes that it was probably Patrick or maybe even Melvin who had told on her, and they both deny it. And they're like, well, do you have proof? Are you talking on facts or just speculation? And she says speculation. So they're like, okay, if it's just about assumptions and speculations, then there's nothing more to talk about here because we don't have time for this. It wasn't us. We don't know what you're talking about. So whatever. So Patrick says in his confessional that he's never ever been a rat, but then they show a flashback scene of him reporting to Kandi everything that Chandrika had said about her pay being really low, about how people at the dollar store get paid more than her. And because, she was having like this conversation with her fellow coworkers, and Patrick made a beeline straight to Kandi the first chance he got and told Kandi everything that Chandrika had said. But coincidentally, it wasn't him that told about Chandrika saying that Todd and Kandi don't care about their restaurant. That was Chandrika herself. So yeah, that meeting, that conversation went nowhere. So she ends up walking away from them. Moving on. Now we see Dominique and Brandon, they're in the car, they're going to get something to eat, and they're having a conversation about their relationship. And Dominique asks Brandon, so when she goes to London, is he going to be seeing anybody else? And he said, of course not. And so they kind of make it official at that moment that they are officially dating, they're officially together, and they're not going to be seeing anybody else. So they're basically in this committed monogamous dating relationship. So it's official now. Moving on to Kandi's house. So Kandi's house, it is Riley's birthday, and they're having like a little birthday celebration for her. And it's just Riley and Kandi Todd, the three old ladies, and little Blaze, and I forgot their son's name. So it's just a really small, intimate little. Oh, and also Kayla, Todd's daughter from his previous relationship. She's also there. So Riley now is a sophomore at NYU. And, Kandi talks about how she can't believe that little Riley is now a full grown adult, her second year in college, living by herself in New York, and everything is going really great. And Riley's on the path, I guess, of becoming an attorney, and Kayla is on the path of doing something with production, but they didn't really expound on what type of production, maybe television production or something like that, something in media. So they talk about the continuing legacy of the restaurant because they asked their little boy, what does he want to do when he grows up? And he says he wants to open up his own restaurant. So then the conversation leads to the children possibly taking over the restaurants. I don't think these restaurants are going to last that long, but hey, stranger things have happened. So they talk about the restaurant and how they want the children to take over the restaurant business when they get older. And then they talk about how important it is for the people who are running the restaurant, Kandi and Todd, to be very much hands-on with the everyday going-ons of the restaurant. Not necessarily to show up there every day, but to, make an appearance, make appearances there, and then get down and dirty with the operation of the restaurant. So they were talking about how Todd has never gone into the kitchen, has never assisted in the kitchen. And Todd was like, I'm not going to go into that kitchen. And so everybody else, Kandi, the three old ladies, Riley, everybody was like, you need to be more involved with the daily operations of the restaurant. Well, you need to have some type of, not the daily operations, because at the beginning of the season, they talked about how Kandi and Todd, they just don't have the time to go there every day. And that's why they have, managers and general managers and all of that to run the everyday stuff. But them as owners, they have to also know how to do a little bit of everything. They have to know exactly how things are ran in the restaurant, in the front of the restaurant, the back of the restaurant. They have to kind of get a feel of what their employees are going through, what their staff is going through. So Todd doesn't think he really needs to do that. And Mama Joyce, she made it very, very clear that it frustrates her that Todd does not want to be more hands-on. She says she herself has gone into the kitchen to see, what the cooks are doing, what the chefs are doing. And Todd and Kandi herself said that she's, been a server, she's been a hostess, she's kind of done it all as well in the kitchen. And Kandi was like, I just don't understand why Todd doesn't want to do it. And she mentioned something about how whenever people write negative reviews about the restaurant, they always bring Kandi's name into it. And she doesn't think that that's fair. She thinks that, Todd should also be held accountable as well. And I thought that was pretty bold of Riley to say, but even if Todd was more hands-on, even if Todd was, doing what they want him to do, I think Kandi's name will always be the only name mentioned because she's the one that's really well known. She's the most famous of the two. Everybody knows Kandi. Everybody's been knowing Kandi. So when they talk about Kandi's restaurants, they're going to mention Kandi's name. No one's going to really talk about Todd or the managers. It's going to be all about Kandi because she's the one that's just known better. So Aunt Bertha, in her confessional, she says that Todd is never in there with them. And then Mama Joyce, in her confessional, she says, well, that's one of the reasons why I cannot stand Todd. Here we go with the Todd bashing. She says she cannot stand Todd because he doesn't want to participate with with what goes on in the restaurant, like really try to experience what everyone else is experiencing at the restaurant. And then she says this is the reason why half of Atlanta can't stand him. Now, Todd is really rough around the edges. Watching this show, Kandi and the Gang, has made me realize that Todd is very much rough around the edges. He's very abrasive. He kind of acts like, I don't think he's using Kandi at all. I really don't think he's with her for her money. I think he genuinely loves Kandi. But I kind of get this impression like he kind of has this attitude like she's where they're where they're at because of him also. And it's like, no, y'all are where y'all are at because Kandi busted her butt since, she was practically a kid to get to where she's at now. But he kind of has this attitude like he's entitled to all of Kandi's fortune. He's entitled to, Kandi's legacy, Kandi's reputation, Kandi's money, and like he really does act like he has a lot to do with where they're at now. And he just kind of hopped on the ride way after she got to where she's at. So, and I think that's really what bothers Mama Joyce the most is the fact that Todd just kind of feels like he belongs to be sitting up there at the top with Kandi. But that's the man that Kandi chose, and where else he's going to sit other than next to her. So you're just going to have to deal with it and accept that, that this is how he thinks and this is how he is. So Kandi agrees that Todd should be more hands-on with the restaurant, and because he's not, he doesn't really know where the problems lie. He thinks he knows where the problems lie, but he really doesn't. So Mama Joyce was trying to tell him, if you were more involved, you would know exactly what's taking so long. I think what she meant taking so long as far as like getting the food out, getting people seated, trying to avoid these extra long lines. And he says, so he knows where the problem is. He doesn't have to work in the kitchen to know where the problem is. Kandi says in her confessional that Todd loves putting up these restaurants, but he doesn't like working in them. Todd is one of those people that just gets a kick out of being the boss, but doesn't really know how to be a good boss. He just likes the fact that he's the one that's running stuff, that people look up to him as someone who is running things, and that's where he gets his joy and pleasure from. I don't think he really knows how to be. Maybe he is the boss, he is the owner, he is all of that, but I just don't think he's a very good one. Yeah, I just don't think he's a very good one. But he thinks that because he's the owner and Kandi is his wife and they're running this, then he should just automatically garner respect. No, he doesn't. And he doesn't even give respect to anybody. So yeah, Todd is rough around the edge. He has a lot to work on as far as his skills as, I don't know, owner, boss, whatever he is. So now we're at the team building event. I'm not going to talk too much about that. It was a good event. It was fun. Everybody had a great time. Brian did show up. It was so obvious to everybody that Brandon and Dominique were together. Torn and Philip, they seemed to have kissed and made up. They patched things over as far as their differences. And the prize was everybody got $100 at the end of the event. So then Brian has a meeting with Don Juan, Philip. No, not Don Juan. He has a meeting with Brandon and Philip. And he shows up at the meeting and they talk about his suspension and why he was suspended, because the very first thing he asked was, why was I even suspended? And they told him, I think it was Philip, told him that it was just your attitude towards, management. How he conducts himself around authority. And Brian said, well, when I used to work here before, it was all whatever. It was all willy-nilly. So when I came back, I hadn't changed who I was. So I was acting like the way I acted like before. I didn't know that there was like a completely different atmosphere now and that things were completely different now. So I was just doing what I've always done when I used to work here. And they try to tell him that they are trying to change things and things are different now and he needs to adjust himself accordingly. And if he does, there'll be no issues. But if he doesn't, there is a system of writing people up, disciplining people, and eventually terminating people. And so Brian is like, you know what, he's good with that. And so Philip and Brandon, they make the decision that he can come back. They're going to give him another chance. And they did mention that how he acted at the team building event had a lot to do with their decision of bringing him back, because he did act like a team player at the team building event. And he got along with everybody, and everybody seems to really love him and adore him. And so they made the decision to bring him back, and that is where this episode ended. So it was a cute little episode. Not that much happened, but it was enough to talk about. And yeah, that's it. That's my review. The new episode comes out tonight, so hopefully I'll be able to get a chance to watch that and do a review on that. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Before you leave, please don't forget to rate the video, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.